Welcome to our deep dive into Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty.
Yeah.
We're going to be exploring how to apply ancient wisdom to our modern lives
Right.
using this blend of Shetty's personal anecdotes, actionable advice that he gives, our mission today to help you find a little more peace and purpose.
Starting right now.
Starting right now, exactly.
And you know what I find so compelling? Is how Shetty himself didn't actually just jump at the chance to become a monk.
Right.
He kind of resisted the idea at first.
Yeah.
He only agreed to attend a lecture if he could hit a bar afterwards.
Really?
And who would have guessed that that one lecture would completely change his life?
It's like a movie plot.
It is.
It's that moment where the hero hears something and everything changes.
Absolutely.
So what was it about that lecture that shifted his perspective?
It was the idea of selfless sacrifice.
Okay.
Like planting trees whose shade you don't expect to sit under. It sparked something in him, this love for the long game.
Yeah.
For thinking beyond instant gratification.
Right.
It made him consider the impact of his actions on the world around him,
Yeah.
not just himself. And that's really the essence of Think Like a Monk.
It makes you wonder, what trees are we planting, metaphorically speaking, right?
Right.
So how do we even begin to think like a monk? Is there a step-by-step guide?
The book outlines 3 stages:
Okay.
letting go, growing, and giving. And the first stage, letting go, is all about clearing away the mental clutter,
Yeah.
the things that keep us from seeing our true selves.
Right.
Shetty compares it to looking into a dusty mirror.
Okay.
You can't see your reflection until you wipe away the grime.
Okay, so I get the dusty mirror metaphor, but what does that look like in real life? How do we actually wipe away the dust?
So think about Shetty's time in the ashram.
Okay.
He lived with only the bare essentials.
Right.
No fancy clothes, no gadgets, no distractions. And that simplicity forced him to look inward.
Right.
It stripped away those external influences and helped him connect with his core values.
It's like hitting the reset button.
It is.
But how much of our dust comes from those external influences versus the stuff we create in our own minds?
That's a great question.
Like, decluttering your physical space is one thing, but what about decluttering your thoughts?
Right. And that's where the concept of Sito Darbacha Marjanam comes in.
Okay.
It's a Sanskrit term that means clearing the impure mirror of the mind. It's about becoming aware of the thoughts and beliefs that are clouding your judgment.
So are we talking about negative thoughts here? Because that's something I struggle with sometimes. It's like my inner critic just loves to chime in.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Negativity is definitely part of it,
Okay.
but it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
Think about your values for a second.
Okay.
How many of them are truly yours?
Mm,
And how many are borrowed from your family, society, or even social media these days?
that's a good question.
Shetty encourages us to do this exercise,
Yeah.
write down your values,
Mm,
trace their origins,
okay.
and honestly ask yourself if they align with who you are at your core.
It's kind of like taking inventory, right?
Yes,
Seeing what's actually valuable and
What?
what's just taking up space.
exactly.
I could definitely use a good values detox.
We all could.
But sometimes it feels like negativity is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How do we even begin to let go of it when it's constantly bombarding us?
It's true. Negativity can be contagious.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired to seek social conformity. So we naturally absorb the moods and opinions of those around us. Think about how you feel after scrolling through social media for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel uplifted and inspired or drained and anxious?
Ooh, good point.
Right.
Sometimes I definitely come away feeling more negative than before.
Yeah.
So what's the antidote?
Right.
How do we stop this negativity from infecting our minds?
Shetty offers a simple but effective technique.
Okay.
Spot, stop, swap.
Hmm.
First, you spot the negativity. Become aware of when you're complaining, comparing, or criticizing.
Gotcha.
Next, you stop yourself in the act.
Okay.
Literally interrupt that negative thought pattern. And finally, you swap that negative behavior for a more mindful and deliberate action.
Okay, I'm liking this spot, stop, swap idea.
Yeah.
It feels manageable, like something I can actually do
It is.
in the moment.
You can,
What are some examples of swaps we could make?
well, instead of complaining about that annoying coworker,
Right.
try expressing gratitude for something they do well, even if it's small. Instead of comparing yourself to someone else's highlight reel on social media,
Right.
focus on celebrating their success.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift in perspective,
Right.
but it can make a big difference in how you feel.
It's like choosing to focus on the good instead of dwelling on the bad.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest, sometimes letting go of negativity is easier said than done.
It is.
especially when it involves other people.
Yeah.
What about those situations where we need to forgive someone, or
Right.
even ourselves?
Forgiveness is huge.
Yeah.
Shetty's a big believer in the power of forgiveness. He's clear that it's not about condoning bad behavior,
Right.
but about freeing ourselves from the burden of anger and resentment.
Yeah.
He suggests trying an exercise where you write a letter of forgiveness, not to send,
Right.
but to process your own emotions.
So even if we don't actually send the letter, the act of writing it can help us move on.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a way to acknowledge the hurt, take responsibility for your part, if any,
Right.
and ultimately choose to release the negativity.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool for healing and letting go.
It makes me think of that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Oh, that's a good one.
We're the ones who suffer in the end.
Absolutely.
And speaking of things we hold on to, let's talk about fear.
Oh, yeah.
It's another biggie that can keep us from living fully.
Huge.
Oh, fear, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Frozen by that what-if thinking. Shetty has an interesting take on this, right?
He does.
Something about trees and wind.
He uses this fascinating analogy from the Biosphere 2 experiment.
Okay.
Remember that project where they tried to create a self-sustaining closed ecosystem?
Yeah.
Well, the trees they planted inside the biosphere grew tall and spindly because they lacked wind. You see, in nature, wind forces trees to develop strong roots.
Right.
But without that resistance, they were fragile.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he's saying that facing our fears actually makes us stronger?
Yes.
Like those trees need the wind to grow deep roots?
Precisely.
Okay.
He even quotes Alex Honnold,
Right.
the free solo climber,
Yeah.
who talks about expanding his comfort zone by practicing his moves over and over again.
Yeah.
He works through the fear until it no longer controls him.
Wow. Talk about turning fear into a motivator.
Right.
But how do we even begin to face our fears?
Well,
Sometimes they feel so overwhelming, it's easier to just avoid them altogether.
Shetty would say the first step is to acknowledge your fear.
You get really curious about it? Okay. Keep asking yourself, what am I truly scared of? Delve deeper each time, like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Right.
Often our deepest fears stem from past experiences
Yeah.
or limiting beliefs that we've been carrying around for years.
So it's about understanding the root of the fear, not just the fear itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Once you understand the source, you can start to reframe it
Okay.
instead of seeing it as an obstacle.
Right.
See it as an opportunity for growth.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
We're letting go of negativity and fear,
Right.
but we're also uncovering our true values.
Absolutely.
But there's still this piece about intention, right?
You're right.
Intention is key.
It is.
So Shetty explains that our actions are driven by 4 main motivations:
Okay.
fear, desire, duty, and love.
Yeah.
And he encourages us to identify which of these is driving our choices in different areas of our lives.
Exactly.
Are some motivations better than others? That's a good question.
I mean, love sounds pretty ideal,
It does.
but fear, not so much.
Right. Well, it's not about judging the motivations as good or bad. It's about becoming aware of the underlying forces that are shaping our choices.
Right.
If we're constantly driven by fear,
Yeah.
we might miss out on opportunities for growth and happiness.
Hmm.
On the flip side, constantly chasing desires can leave us feeling empty and unfulfilled,
Right.
especially if those desires are based on external validation or material possessions.
Yeah. So it's about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Not letting fear hold us back, but also not getting caught up in the endless pursuit of more.
Absolutely.
But how does love fit into all of this?
So love in this context is about aligning your actions with your values and purpose. It's about doing things from a place of genuine care and compassion,
Right.
both for yourself and for others.
Okay, so it's not just romantic love.
Right.
It's about approaching life with a loving mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. And Shetty introduces this concept called sankalpa.
Okay.
It's setting intentions that are aligned with your values and purpose. It's about choosing to act in ways that bring you closer to your authentic self.
So we're setting intentions and being mindful of our motivations.
Right.
But how do we actually make sure our actions are aligned with those intentions?
That's a good question.
I mean, we all have those moments where we know what we should do,
We do.
but we end up doing the opposite.
Right. And that's where the mind comes in.
Okay.
The next big hurdle in our journey. Shetty calls it the wild stallion that needs taming.
Oh.
We're going to explore that in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds like we've got some serious mind taming ahead of us.
We do, but don't worry.
Okay.
We'll equip you with the tools and techniques you need to master your mind
Yeah.
and unlock your full potential.
I can't wait.
Awesome.
See you in part 2.
See you then. Welcome back. We left off talking about the mind as this wild stallion that needs taming. It's powerful, but if you don't know how to control it,
Right.
it can run wild and take you places you don't want to go.
And Shetty talks about this constant chatter in our minds, what
Yeah.
he calls the monkey mind versus the monk mind.
Mm-hmm.
How do we quiet those monkeys and achieve that monk-like focus?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm not the only one who feels like their mind is a nonstop circus sometimes.
You're definitely not alone.
Right.
Even Shetty struggled with meditation at first.
Really?
He admits he approached it with this competitive mindset, wanting to be the best meditator, which ironically just created more internal conflict.
Yeah.
Meditation isn't about winning or achieving something.
Right.
It's about cultivating awareness and stillness.
So how do we go from monkey mind to monk mind?
Well,
Do we need to sit in a cave for years and chant? Kidding, but seriously.
you don't.
Is there any practical tips we can use in our daily lives?
There are, and they don't require a cave.
Okay, good.
Shetty uses this great analogy of a chariot to explain how to train the mind.
Okay.
The intellect is the charioteer. The mind is the chariot.
Okay.
The senses are the horses. And the soul is the passenger.
Okay, I love analogies. So the charioteer
Right.
needs to learn how to control those wild horses, aka our senses,
Yeah.
and steer the mind in the right direction.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Are you leading your mind, or is it leading you when you let your senses run wild,
Right.
getting caught up in distractions, cravings, or impulses?
Yeah.
It's like letting the horses take control of the chariot.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So it's about being mindful of what we're feeding our senses
Mm-hmm.
and making conscious choices about where we direct our attention.
Right.
It's about taking back the reins.
Exactly.
And breath work can be incredibly helpful here.
Oh, yeah.
Shetty talks about how focused breathing can calm the mind and help you gain control over your thoughts and emotions.
Yeah,
It's like hitting the pause button on the mental chatter
it is.
and creating space for clarity and stillness.
Exactly.
It's amazing how something as simple as breathing can have such a powerful impact on our mental state.
It is.
Do you have a favorite breathing exercise you could share with us?
One technique Shetty recommends is box breathing. Inhale for a count of 4.
Okay.
Hold for 4. Exhale for 4.
Okay.
And hold for 4.
Gotcha.
Repeat this cycle for a few minutes.
Okay.
And notice how your mind starts to settle.
Yeah.
It's a great way to center yourself anytime you feel overwhelmed or stressed.
That sounds easy enough.
It is.
I'm going to try that later.
Awesome.
But even when we do manage to calm those mental monkeys,
Right?
there's still the ego to contend with, right?
Ah, yes, the ego, this master of disguise.
Mm.
Shetty makes a distinction between the real ego, which is our essence,
Okay.
and the false ego,
Right.
the constructed identity that's constantly seeking significance and validation.
So it's the false ego that gets us into trouble. The one that makes us compare ourselves to others,
Yeah.
crave attention,
Mm-hmm.
and feel threatened when our ego is bruised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The false ego is like a mask we wear
Mm-hmm.
to hide our insecurities and protect our fragile sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
But this mask isolates us
Right.
and keeps us from experiencing genuine connection.
It's like that saying, the ego is not your amigo.
I like that one.
It can really sabotage our happiness.
It can.
How do we even begin to recognize when our ego is running the show?
Shetty suggests paying attention to your reactions in everyday situations. Notice how you react when someone compliments you.
Okay.
Do you brush it off or deflect the praise?
Yeah.
Or do you secretly bask in the glow of external validation?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I never thought about it that way.
And observe how you react when someone insults you. Do you get defensive or angry?
Yeah.
Do you feel the need to prove them wrong or put them in their place? Or can you let it roll off your back without taking it personally? These reactions can reveal a lot about how much power your ego holds over you.
It's like holding up a mirror to our inner world, isn't it?
It is.
Seeing those patterns and recognizing when the ego is driving our behavior.
Exactly.
And remember that story Shetty tells about the 4 monks who argue over who broke their vow of silence?
Oh, yeah. Great story.
It perfectly illustrates how the ego can trap us in a cycle of judgment and righteousness.
It does.
The monks were so focused on proving their innocence
Right.
that they completely missed the point of the exercise.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder to question our assumptions and to check our egos at the door,
Yeah.
especially when we're feeling self-righteous.
Yeah, for sure.
But how do we actually tame this ego?
Well,
It feels like it's always lurking in the shadows,
it is.
ready to pounce.
Right.
Yeah.
Humility is key.
Okay.
Shetty talks about how even simple acts of service, like washing dishes or cleaning toilets, can help us cultivate humility.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're not above any task.
Yeah.
And that true greatness lies in serving others, not in seeking status or recognition.
So it's not about eradicating the ego altogether,
Right.
but about putting it in its rightful place.
Exactly.
Recognizing its strengths and weaknesses, but not letting it run the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we start to loosen the ego's grip,
Right.
we create space to connect with something much deeper. Our purpose, our dharma.
Okay, purpose. This is a big one.
It is.
We all want to feel like our lives have meaning and direction.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to figure out what our dharma is?
So Shetty draws on the ancient wisdom of the four varnas, which represent 4 different skill sets or personality types.
Okay.
Guide, leader, creator, and maker. Each varna has its own unique strengths and contributions to society.
So it's about figuring out which varna resonates most with our natural abilities and inclinations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Shetty provides exercises in the book to help us identify our varna. It's about understanding your unique gifts and how you can best use them to serve the world.
It's like finding your place in the grand tapestry of life, isn't it?
It is.
Knowing what threads you bring to the weave.
Beautiful.
And remember Shetty's story about starting the Think Out Loud Club in college?
Right.
He found his passion for teaching monk philosophy in a relatable way.
He did.
Connecting with people outside of the traditional ashram setting.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how dharma can manifest in unexpected ways.
It is.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
It shows that we don't have to fit into a certain mold or follow a specific path.
Right.
Our dharma is unique to us.
It is.
And it can evolve as we grow and change.
Absolutely.
So we're letting go, we're growing,
Yeah.
we're finding our purpose.
Right.
What's next in this journey of monk thinking?
It's about putting those pieces together
Okay.
and designing a life that reflects your values and your dharma. It's about making conscious choices
Right.
that bring you closer to your truest self.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
So we're talking about designing our day, our routines, our habits, all those little things that add up to a meaningful life.
Exactly.
And Shetty emphasizes the importance of starting the day with intention.
Yes.
Otherwise, we can easily get swept away by the chaos of the day,
We can.
reacting to everything and everyone around us
Right.
instead of proactively creating the life we want.
Exactly.
Okay, so no more hitting the snooze button and scrambling out the door.
Right.
What's the secret to a truly monk-like morning routine?
Shetty recommends waking up an hour earlier to create space for yourself. He even has a framework, TIME,
Okay.
thankfulness, insight, meditation, and exercise. It's about setting the tone for the day, grounding yourself in gratitude,
Right.
gaining clarity through introspection,
Yeah.
and energizing your body and mind.
It sounds like a powerful way to start the day.
It is.
But I have to admit, I'm not always the best at sticking to routine.
Okay.
Sometimes they feel so rigid and boring. How do we make them sustainable and enjoyable?
So Shetty's point is that routines,
Yeah.
even though they seem repetitive,
Right.
actually free up mental space for creativity and focus. Think of those monks walking the same path every day.
Okay.
They notice something new each time because they're fully present in the moment. It's not about the routine itself,
Right.
but the mindset you bring to it.
So it's about creating structure without being overly rigid,
Exactly.
allowing for flexibility and spontaneity, but having a framework to guide you.
Right.
And another key aspect of designing your day is embracing single tasking.
Yes.
We live in a world that glorifies multitasking.
We do.
But research shows it actually hinders our ability to focus and be present.
It does.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm the queen of multitasking.
Right.
But I often feel scattered and overwhelmed.
Yeah. Shetty encourages us to try single tasking,
Okay.
to fully immerse ourselves in one activity at a time,
Right.
whether it's eating a meal, having a conversation,
Yeah.
or working on a project.
Okay.
It's about giving your undivided attention to whatever you're doing.
Right.
which ultimately leads to greater productivity and enjoyment.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
When we're constantly switching between tasks, our mind never really gets a chance to settle and focus.
Right.
It's like we're always running on that mental hamster wheel.
Exactly.
But even when we create these amazing routines
No.
and master the art of single tasking,
Mm.
there's still this piece about staying positive and motivated, right?
Yes.
How do we cultivate that inner sunshine,
Yeah.
especially when life throws us curveballs?
That's where gratitude comes in.
Okay.
Shetty explains that gratitude can transform our outlook and improve our well-being. It's not just about feeling thankful for the good things in our lives.
Right.
It's about actively choosing to focus on the good, even when things are tough.
So it's like a muscle we can strengthen. The more we practice gratitude, the easier it becomes to see the good, even in challenging situations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Shetty shares a story about an old wise woman
Okay.
who asks a young man struggling with pain
Mm.
to imagine putting a handful of salt in a glass of water
Okay.
versus putting it in a lake.
Okay.
The salt represents pain,
Mm.
and the water represents our perspective.
Okay.
The bigger our perspective,
Yeah.
the less intense the pain feels.
Wow. I love that analogy.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that our perspective shapes our reality.
It does.
So the key is to expand our perspective, to zoom out and see the bigger picture, even when we're feeling stuck in the muck of our problems.
Exactly.
And gratitude can help us do just that.
It can.
It allows us to appreciate the good even amidst the bad.
Right.
Shetty encourages us to practice gratitude daily, to find things to be thankful for, no matter how small.
Yeah.
It could be a warm cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind word from a stranger. It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we have, from what's wrong to what's right.
Exactly.
But what about those situations where it feels really hard to find gratitude?
Right.
Like when we're going through a major life challenge or dealing with difficult people.
Shetty would say those are the times when gratitude is most important. It's easy to be grateful when things are going well.
Right.
But it's in those challenging moments that gratitude can truly transform our experience.
Yeah.
Allows us to find glimmers of hope, even in the darkest of times.
It's like finding those tiny wildflowers growing in the cracks of the pavement.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that beauty and resilience can exist even in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely.
So we're designing our day, we're cultivating gratitude,
Yeah.
we're taming the mind and the ego.
Right.
What's the final piece of this monk thinking puzzle?
It's about nurturing our relationships.
Okay.
Those connections that give our lives meaning and purpose.
Okay, relationships. They can bring us so much joy,
They can.
but also so much heartache.
Right.
What's the monk's secret to navigating the complexities of human connection?
Shetty introduces this concept called the foxhole test.
Mm.
Who would you want beside you in a foxhole?
Okay.
It's a question that forces you to think about who you truly trust and rely on. It's about identifying those relationships that provide a sense of safety, support, and belonging.
It's about choosing quality over quantity, right?
It is.
Having a few deep connections that nourish us, rather than a bunch of superficial relationships that drain our energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Shetty talks about different stages of trust, from neutral to contractual to mutual to pure.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that different levels of trust exist in different relationships.
Right.
It's about being mindful of who we allow into our inner circle and being grateful for those we can truly rely on.
It makes sense that not all relationships are created equal.
They're not.
We have different levels of intimacy and trust with different people.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right.
But how do we nurture those relationships that truly matter? How do we create deeper connections and cultivate more love and compassion in our lives?
Shetty emphasizes the importance of understanding how different people experience and express love. He even suggests asking your loved ones how they like to receive love.
Okay.
What makes one person feel loved might not resonate with another. It's about meeting people where they are and honoring their unique needs.
That's such great advice.
Right.
It's about moving beyond our own assumptions and preferences and being willing to see the world through the eyes of others.
Yeah.
And it's about being willing to let go of relationships that are no longer serving us.
Absolutely.
Sometimes holding on to the wrong person causes more pain than letting go.
It does.
It's tough to admit that sometimes we outgrow relationships,
It is.
but it's about creating space for healthier, more fulfilling connections to emerge.
Right.
And remember, remember, letting go doesn't have to be dramatic or adversarial.
Yeah.
It can be a gentle process of creating healthy boundaries, communicating your needs,
Right.
and honoring the natural evolution of relationships.
Yeah, I like
So we're letting go of negativity, fear, and even unhealthy relationships. We're growing.
Right.
We're discovering our purpose.
Yeah.
We're designing our day. We're cultivating gratitude.
Right.
And we're nurturing our relationships.
Absolute.
This monk thinking thing is really starting to come together.
It is.
But there's still this piece about giving, right?
You're right. We've covered a lot of ground in terms of how to cultivate inner peace and purpose.
Right.
But the journey doesn't end there.
Okay.
The final piece, the culmination of monk thinking, is about giving back, about sharing our gifts with the world.
Okay.
We'll explore this crucial aspect in part 3 of this deep dive.
I can't wait to dive into it. I'm already feeling inspired to put all these principles into action. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Think Like a Monk. And I'm so ready to explore this idea of giving.
Yeah.
It feels like we've been building up to this point.
Right.
We've explored how to cultivate inner peace and purpose, but what's the next step? How do we take all this monk wisdom and share it with the world?
That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about personal transformation.
Right.
It's about using that transformation to make a positive impact on others. Shetty reveals that living a life of service, or seva, was the most important lesson he learned as a monk.
Really, even more important than all the meditation and mindfulness practices.
Yeah, it's the cornerstone of the monk way of life. But here's the thing. Service doesn't have to involve grand gestures or radical life changes.
Okay.
It's about finding those small, everyday opportunities to help others.
Yeah.
To contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay, so what does a service mindset actually look like in practice? Could you give me some examples?
Imagine this. You're rushing to work.
Okay.
But you pause to hold the door open for someone struggling with their bags. You see a friend feeling down, and you offer a listening ear without judgment.
Yeah.
You volunteer at a local soup kitchen or donate to a cause you believe in. It's about approaching life with a spirit of generosity and compassion, looking for ways to brighten someone's day.
I love that. It's about those small acts of kindness that ripple outward.
They do.
But Shetty also talks about the motivation behind service, right?
He does.
How true service should be selfless.
Absolutely. The Bhagavad Gita even talks about sattvic giving in a mode of goodness, without expecting anything in return. It's about offering your help without any strings attached.
Yeah.
Simply because you genuinely care.
That makes sense. But let's be real.
Yeah.
Most of us feel good when we help others.
We do.
So isn't there always an element of self-interest involved?
Shetty acknowledges that. He says if a certain type of giving makes you feel happy, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
The key is to be mindful of your intentions.
Right.
Are you primarily motivated by a desire to help? Or are you seeking recognition and praise for your good deeds?
Right.
It's about checking your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And approaching service with humility.
It's like the difference between doing something to impress others versus doing something because it feels right in your heart.
Exactly.
So it's okay to feel good about helping others, as long as our primary intention is to serve.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions and your desire to serve intersect.
Yeah.
Shetty even encourages us to weave service into our dharma.
Right.
That unique purpose we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So if you're a musician, maybe you use your music to uplift others. If you're a teacher, you inspire your students to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
If you're a writer, you use your words to spread awareness about important causes. It's about finding creative ways to align your gifts with your desire to make a positive impact.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It's not just about finding your purpose.
Right.
It's about using it to serve others.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of that quote, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Oh, it's a good one.
But where do we even begin?
Right.
How do we find those opportunities to serve that truly resonate with us?
Shetty suggests making a list of all the places you spend your time. Work, home, your community.
Okay.
And then brainstorm ways to incorporate service into those environments.
Yep.
Maybe you mentor a coworker.
Yeah.
Organize a neighborhood cleanup. Or volunteer at your child's school. The possibilities are endless.
It's about bringing that service mindset into every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely.
So we've got this service mindset. We're
Right.
letting go.
Mhm.
We're growing.
Yeah.
We're giving.
Right.
What does it all add up to? What's
Yeah.
the ultimate goal of monk thinking?
It's about living a life that's aligned with your values, your dharma,
Right.
and your desire to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating inner peace
Right.
and sharing that peace with others.
It sounds like a beautiful way to live.
It is.
But I imagine it's an ongoing process, a journey, rather than a destination.
Absolutely.
Right.
Shetty emphasizes the importance of flexibility and resilience. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns,
It is.
and we need to be able to adapt without losing sight of our values and intentions.
Right.
It's about setting intentions for each day,
Yeah.
choosing to be kind, compassionate, or focused,
Hmm.
and remembering that it's okay to stumble along the way.
Yeah.
The key is to get back up and keep moving forward.
It's like learning to dance with life, isn't it?
Yes.
Embracing the rhythm, the flow, and even the missteps.
Absolutely.
But how do we know if this monk thinking is actually working?
Right.
What are the signs that we're on the right path?
Shetty tells a story about a novice monk who complains to his teacher about his meditation practice. He says he's constantly distracted, his legs fall asleep, he can't stay awake.
Oh, okay.
And the teacher wisely asks him,
Yeah.
"Do you get angry less often?"
That's a great question.
It is.
It shifts the focus from perfection to transformation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The true measure of progress is not how long you can sit in meditation,
Right.
but how you show up in your everyday life.
Right.
Are you becoming more patient, more compassionate, more forgiving? If so, then the practice is working.
It's not about achieving some kind of enlightenment overnight,
Right.
but about those subtle shifts in our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Yeah.
It's about becoming a better version of ourselves day by day.
Absolutely.
And Shetty reminds us that the ultimate reminder of our purpose is the inevitability of death.
Mm-hmm.
It might sound morbid,
Yeah.
but it can also be incredibly motivating.
You can.
It's like that saying, life is short, but it's also really long. We have this precious opportunity to make each day count.
We do.
Yeah.
Knowing that our time is limited compels us to make the most of it,
Right.
to live with intention,
Yeah.
to pursue our passions,
Yeah.
and to make a difference.
Yeah.
Shetty encourages us to reflect on the common regrets people have on their deathbeds, wishing they had spent more time with loved ones,
Right.
had pursued their dreams,
Oh.
or had simply been happier.
Right.
These regrets can serve as powerful reminders to live a life that's true to ourselves, and that leaves a positive legacy.
It's a wake-up call to stop putting things off and start living the life we truly desire right now.
Right now, yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Think Like a Monk,
Right.
what's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they realize that the wisdom of the monks is not just for a select few.
Right.
It's available to all of us, right here, right now. It's about making conscious choices,
Right.
cultivating inner peace, and sharing that peace with the world. It's about embracing the journey
Right.
with all its challenges and triumphs,
Yeah.
and knowing that we have the power to create a life filled with purpose and meaning.
It's been an incredible journey exploring this book with you.
I agree.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for navigating life's ups and downs.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
Keep exploring these concepts.
Yeah.
Keep practicing these techniques. And keep sharing your unique gifts with the world.
Beautiful. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Think Like a Monk.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
We hope you'll continue to explore these ideas
Absolutely.
and discover your own path to peace, purpose, and service.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving.